Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. So I decided that I would start this channel because of a journey that my family started a few years ago. We felt like we wanted to homeschool our children. Our challenge was that we had to work. And when I say work, I mean work outside our homes. But we wanted to homeschool. And that just felt a little bit contradictory. But it was something that was on our hearts, something that we had done a few years earlier. And we'll talk about that later on in another episode. But we really felt like this was something that we wanted to do. And so, as moms do, I kind of went searching for resources that were specifically targeted to parents who want to work outside their homes, or maybe parents who work full-time from home, but you have to homeschool. And I didn't find a lot of resources. I know that now there are excellent, just wonderful Facebook groups for working homeschooling parents, but it was just very hard a few years ago. So many of the resources were specifically directed at parents who, ideally one parent probably works outside the home, and then there's another parent who is at home. Not a lot for parents who have to work outside their home and who want to homeschool. And I feel as though, over the years we've gathered resources and just materials and just experiences that I want to share with parents who have decided to take this journey. And one of the things I want to make clear is that this is not a channel that is about bashing any other choice that another family might make that is in the best interest of their own children. I feel like as working homeschooling parents and just, homeschoolers in general, we face so much judgment and censure. And I don't necessarily think that it is helpful for us to return fire, in the sense that I know it's very easy for us to get into, we're gonna homeschool because, and we begin to bash either public school or maybe private schools or just any kind of traditional kind of schooling. And I found that that's really a slippery slope, because what that does is not only does it pit us against them, but I know that there are working homeschooling families where parents work in these settings. Okay? And I also know that what it does is it forces us into this paradigm where we're always out to prove something rather than keeping our focus on what is best for our own children. So, just want to make that clear. Whatever choices another family chooses to make, bless them. That is their business, and we ought to just honor the paths that other people choose to make and just kind of focus our energies on what we have decided to do. All right, which brings me to the thrust or the focus of this first episode. Right, why have you chosen to do this? This is a difficult path. I think it is more difficult in the sense that to begin, it sounds like an oxymoron. Okay, you're gonna work full time. Now, let me make that very clear. If you are a homeschooling parent at all, you are working. Homeschooling your child's a full-time job. But for those of us who work outside our homes, we have obligations that we must fulfill, that we want to do with excellence. And there are hours that we have to fulfill, and it takes us outside our home. And then we're going to take on the task of homeschooling our own children. So it feels like a contradiction. And I've talked to people who did not know that such a thing was even possible. And it sounds weird or strange or fraudulent or just all kinds of reactions I get when I tell people that I work and I homeschool my children. That's what my husband and I have chosen to do. And so it brings us back to why would you want to do this? This is a harder path. All right. And again, it kind of takes me back to the censure of, well, when we first decided that we wanted to do this, when I did the research, I read a lot of, well, if you just, forget about your vacation this year, or maybe if you downsized and sold the third or the second car that you have in your garage, or maybe if you decide not to go to the salon, just all kinds of really condescending and unhelpful comments that made all kinds of assumptions about the working class and about why people work and homeschool. For some of us, this is not a choice. We would choose very differently. For some of us, it's not about just cutting out these, wants that we have that we can just sacrifice and take care of our families, and we're portrayed as selfish or wanting to have our cake and eat it too. It was none of that. But my point is, even if that is the choice, even if working is optional, that's not what I want to address. I want to address those of us who were working and we're homeschooling for whatever reason. And I hate to sound like, a broken record, because I've said this before, but I feel like it's so important that we establish that. All right. So now let's go back to, again, why are you doing this? And I say that this has to be the foundational kind of premise conversation that you have with your spouse, with your family, because this is going to guide so much of what you do in the weeks, months, and sometimes years to come. The why of it. And the why of it is important when your in-laws don't approve, when they hear that you're working and homeschooling and they think this is a horrifying choice and your children are going to be emotionally or socially stunted, and you second guess yourself. Or when you tell people at church or in your social group or your girlfriends or whatever, or when you are dealing with a teenager who does not want to do this, or when you're just second guessing yourself, when you feel as though I am somehow defrauding my children, I am somehow not giving them the best education that they could possibly get, or days when you just feel like quitting because you have work obligations and you're trying to do this and this is so difficult. You have to keep in mind that foundational principle. Why have I chosen? Why did I choose? Why did we choose to do this to start with? All right. It might be for religious reasons. It might be simply because you wish to customize your child's education. It might be because your child has special needs and challenges that you feel are best met at home. It just might be that your philosophy of education compels you to want to educate your child in a different way. Just a plethora of reasons that might drive you to want to pursue this path. And you keep that in the forefront, because there are times when, you just have to be flexible. I've known of parents who started homeschooling and then they after a period of time, their children return to more traditional settings. And again, all that was consistent with the reason they chose to homeschool in the first place. And then I've known of parents who have gone through extraordinary challenges in their lives and they decided that, nope, this is the path that we have chosen and we're going to stick with it. And this is what works best for us. And we want to keep that foundation, that reason uppermost in our minds, because we don't want to be a source of instability in our children's lives. Our children, especially in these uncertain times, our children, they won't say that, but we know they need us to be sure. They need us to provide that sense of security, even when they're kicking and screaming and saying how horrible this is. Although some of our kids just absolutely love it, just yes, please, let's do this. But we need to be that secure place, that anchor for them. And we need to keep this in the back of our minds, right? So I would invite you to talk this over with your spouse, or if you're a single parent, to discuss this with people who might share your vision and might provide additional insight. Talk to your family members, your children rather. Talk to your children about this. But I just want to say this in terms of, talking to your children about this. I know that there are families who, for them, just based on the vision of education that they have chosen to pursue, they believe that they will not proceed without the approval and without buy-in from their children. And that's fine. Again, I believe that this should be a censure-free zone. If this is what a parent or a family has chosen based on their philosophy of education, that's great. I know that for us, for my family, while we discussed this with our children and we talked to them about what we were thinking about, praying about, we did not leave the final decision up to them. We felt as though, as their parents, we have the oversight and responsibility to guide their educational experiences. And while we valued their input, that ultimately this was the decision that we were going to make. If your family chooses to do something else, bless you, that is what you have chosen to do. So think about it, talk about it, turn it over in your mind, pray about it. And I suggest that you just write it down. Why am I doing this? You might find that you have multiple reasons for doing this. And we will talk next time about, having established your foundation, your vision, your mission, what that will look like as you guide your children's educational experiences. All right, so we'll talk next time.